Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and welcome to the Steadfast and Loyal podcast.
You gotta light 'em up before they burn it down. Better dig deep and put 'em in the ground. Blood on their hands, they're hellbound. Save us all. They're gonna burn it down. Save us all before they burn it down.
This episode of the Steadfast and Loyal podcast is brought to us by our friends at the United States Concealed Carry Association. The USCCA helps responsible Americans like you prepare for what happens before, during, and after an act of lawful self-defense. USCCA members get life-saving education, expert training, plus self-defense liability insurance. These benefits provide more than 500,000 USCCA members with the peace of mind that they deserve. Plus, a USCCA membership is always risk-free with their 100% money-back, quote-unquote, bulletproof guarantee. Membership is truly an investment worth exploring. Click Learn More below right now to activate your United States Concealed Carry Association membership. Click Learn More right now. And remember, the USCCA is not an insurance company. A policy has been issued to the USCCA by Universal Fire and Casualty Insurance Company. That policy provides the association and its members with self-defense liability insurance subject to its terms, conditions, limitations, and exclusions. And ladies and gentlemen, if we continue to have violent criminals released back out onto the streets, you have the right to be able to defend yourself, and the USCCA will make sure that you can have a proper defense of yourself if it comes to a legal court hearing. We'll be right back. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Steadfast and Loyal podcast. You know, at the time of this taping, former President Donald Trump, candidate for President Donald Trump, is in New York City. He has not left Trump Towers, has not headed down to the courthouse for his arraignment. But I think it's important that we talk about what this day means. And I'm sure there'll be a whole lot of talk after we find out about these indictments, these charges, quote unquote, and everything that is happening. But what we really should be focused on is not just President Trump. It's this constitutional republic. And this constitutional republic is based upon two things: individual rights, freedoms, and liberties, and the rule of law. Now, progressive socialists don't give a doggone about individual rights, freedoms, and liberties. They don't see you as an individual. They see you much the same as the old Star Trek Next Generation. You're the Borg. You're just part of the collective. You have a number, 7 of 9, 9 of 12. You have no identity, unless it's an identity that they approve of. But you cannot be in and of yourself recognized as a person. Kind of reminds me of that Bob Seger song, I Feel Like a Number. Remember that? Pretty appropriate for how the progressive socialist left sees things and this concept of collectivism. Now, when you don't see the individual, when you think that individual rights and freedoms are adjusted based upon your ideology, which is really what the leftists are all about. That's why they don't care about you having a right to defend yourself, to keep and bear arms. Doesn't go along with their agenda because they want to be able to have totalitarian control. And so therefore, if you want totalitarian control, it's not about the rule of law, it's about the right to rule. And that's where we are in America. Because as we think about a former president being brought up on charges, and you know, right now it appears that this is going to be about the Stormy Daniels, you know, she was a porn star, a non-disclosure agreement, paying her cash. Okay. Statute of limitations is over. The previous DA there in Manhattan, New York City, didn't pursue it. The Federal Elections Commission didn't pursue it. Department of Justice didn't pursue it. But now we got this guy, Alvin Bragg, a Soros-supported district attorney. He's pursuing this. For what ends? For what reason? For what purpose? This is now devolving us into, you've heard it kicked around, a banana republic. I don't want to use those type of terms. I just want to talk about the fact that we are destroying, undermining, decimating the rule of law in the United States of America. Who would have ever thought that we would say to a former president who is a current presidential candidate that we're going to go out and we're going to charge you for something as frivolous as this? A misdemeanor is going to be upgraded to a felon. And let me tell you the hypocrisy of that. And you all have heard these things. You all know these things. But I think we have to continue to hammer this point. You have to understand these things. Alvin Bragg is taking felonious offenses, assaults, murder, all of these things. He's lowering those down to misdemeanors. He's releasing criminals back out into the streets. And guess what criminals do? I mean, it's very Pavlovian. If you reward bad behavior, you get more bad behavior. And they go back out and they kill and assault more people. But that's okay. Because in the leftist mindset, the victim is the criminal. A la, look at what is happening in Nashville. I mean, now all of a sudden Madonna is going to come to Nashville and do a concert to benefit the LGBTQIA plus ZYA whatever community. Because the victim is Audrey Elizabeth Hale, the 28-year-old who shot 6 people, 3 of which were 9-year-olds. Something that she had been planning, now we know, for about a month. Something that she decided that this Christian school would be the one she'd go after because it didn't have a level of security. And now we got Miley Cyrus, who says she's going to show up in Nashville and do a benefit for the trans community. The same trans community, gender dysphoric community. They call for a day of vengeance because they want to be seen. They want to be heard. And killing 3 9-year-olds, well, that's just a means to their end. See, that's how the left rolls. They justify their rule. They justify the individual rights that align with their ideological agenda. And if you're not part of that, well, then you have a right to die. You should be killed. And for whatever reason, we continue to treat this as not the mental condition that it is, but as a protected class. And if you stand up to this protected class, then you're the bad person. They're the victims. You become the aggressor. Even if you are 60 plus years of age and were gunned down, or if you're 9 years of age and you're gunned down. See, that's the mentality of the left. That's how they destroy the rule of law, because they only want the right to rule. And they only want people that are going to be complicit and compliant with their ideological agenda. That's what unity means to them. Free speech means accepted speech as long as it's in conjunction with their ideological agenda. If not, well, we're going to put a gag order maybe on you, former President Trump, so you can't go out and talk about this. We don't believe that you're innocent until proven guilty. We don't believe that you're a citizen in the United States of America. We don't like you. You're bad. We hate you. So we're going to take away your right to speak. We're going to take away your right of freedom of expression. But everyone else is going to talk about this. Everyone else is going to frame the narrative. Everyone else is going to frame this case. And if this is not just about the Stormy Daniels thing, if this is about, some people are floating the idea about, criminality and fraud in the Trump International or the Trump businesses, man, let me tell you something. What about the Clinton Global Initiative? You want to talk about some fraud? You want to talk about selling influence? What about what we see happening with Hunter Biden and all the information, all the bank account information and data that's coming out with the big guy. And oh, by the way, it's so funny that intelligence community people, 51 or somebody, said that this was just Russian misinformation. As a matter of fact, now Hunter Biden is suing the computer store owner when we were told, and he said, it's not my computer. So why are you suing someone for something that you said was misinformation? It wasn't even yours, because it is yours. And there's truth behind it. But you cannot go and prosecute him. You can't even bring up what happened with John Edwards. Remember John Edwards? Now, I'm going back in history a little bit. John Edwards from South Carolina ran for president. He was using campaign funds to pay off his mistress, who had a baby with him. Nothing happened to John Edwards. Or how about Bill Clinton? Bill Clinton was a sitting president in the White House and sexually assaulted a female intern. No handcuffs there. No indictments there. Even after he lied about it. Because see, when he was in as president, okay, not candidate for president or anything like that, sitting president, we were told it's not about character. We were told it's just about the economy. So if a sitting president takes your daughter, an intern, and sexually assaults her in the Oval Office, to the left, that's just hunky-dory. That's just fine. That's just how we roll. But if you're not part of our school of thought, then we're coming after you. If you're the political opposition, we're coming after you. If we could put you up against a wall, and don't think that's hyperbole. That's what leftists do. If they can eliminate you, they will. Oh, they just torment you through lawfare, legalese. That's where we are right now. But eventually they'd like to be able to put you up against a wall because it's their right to rule. Or let's talk about Barack Obama and Eric Holder. Remember that thing called Fast and Furious? And I'm not talking about the most recent iteration of Fast and Furious. I think we're up to like 55 Fast and Furious movies. I don't know. But I'm talking about the Fast and Furious where Barack Obama wanted to undermine our Second Amendment rights. So they flooded weapons into Mexico, into the hands of what is now a transnational narco-criminal terrorist organization, the cartels. And guess what? A United States Border Patrol agent, Brian Terry, lost his life because of Obama and Eric Holder's scheme called Operation Fast and Furious. Was there any indictment? Any handcuffs? Any arraignment? Fingerprinting? Mugshot? No. Because it was fine. Because whatever we want to do to undermine your Second Amendment rights, that's great. Who cares if a Border Patrol agent loses his life? Who cares if we don't protect our border, which is constitutionally mandated in Article 4, Section 4, and hundreds, thousands of Americans have lost their lives due to the chemical war, the chemical poisoning that emanates from China called fentanyl. Or the human and sex trafficking crisis. Oh, that's right. It's not a crisis. It's a significant challenge. That's what Alejandro Mayorgas said just recently on 60 Minutes. Because it's about the right to rule. If they want 5, 6, 7, 10 million illegal immigrants to come into this country in violation of our sovereignty, it's fine by them. Because they don't give a damn about the rule of law. They care about being in perpetual rule. And that's what you see happening. I mean, let's think about Hillary Clinton and the Steele dossier, which, of course, she used campaign finance to fund that. I mean, it was filtered through some organizations, whatever, but it was, money that came from her campaign. Nothing came of that. And, of course, that was something that led to a first impeachment all over this Russia hoax, which we had agents in the FBI who manipulated the truth in order to get all of these things brought up against a presidential, elect and then a president. Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, where are they? Still running around, enjoying life. Lois Lerner, still getting 6-figure taxpayer-funded retirement. And think about what she did to go after the constitutional conservative grassroots movement known as the Tea Party. See, they don't care. It's about the right to rule. It's not about the rule of law. All of these things have been building up all of this time. Parents, when they show up at a school board meeting, they're the domestic terrorists. National Association of School Boards asking the Department of Justice, designate these people as domestic terrorists. Go after them. Why? Because we want to indoctrinate their children. We want to sexualize the children. That's perversion. But yet, Jane's Revenge can go out there, and they admit it. They say, we're doing it. They can go out there and firebomb pro-life advocacy centers. They can vandalize churches and pro-life advocacy centers. Antifa can go out there and attack police and a police training facility using like flash bang fire bombs, Molotov cocktails, killing police officers, destroying government buildings. Nothing happens to them. As a matter of fact, the current vice president, when she was a senator, she helped raise funds for these violent protesters to get released. But the infamous, all bad January 6 people, they had exculpatory evidence withheld. Y'all have seen the tapes. And yeah, there were Republicans that were upset about tapes that belong to the American people because the American people, the taxpayers, pay for those cameras, those security cameras in the Capitol, so that we have a right to know because we're paying for it. But why was that evidence withheld by the government in these incredibly drummed up kangaroo court type of events that sent Americans to jail? One of which now, I think it's Jacob Hensley. He's been released because transparency is a beautiful thing. But the fact that the government withheld exculpatory evidence on American citizens while they let Antifa and Jane's Revenge and all these people run free, they don't care about the rule of law. It's the right to rule. And they're happy to allow these agents of intimidation, coercion, to be out in the streets and come after you. That's why Madonna and Miley Cyrus can go down there and give a benefit for a community that wanted a day of vengeance after 3 9-year-olds were gunned down by a mentally disturbed female that thought she was a male. And oh, by the way, the media doesn't even want us to talk about that. We can't say anything about that. Doug McKay is facing 10 years in prison because he did anti-Hillary Clinton memes. Now, what does that remind me of? It reminds me how Islamic jihadists will put a fatwa out on you if you, quote unquote, mock the prophet. You draw an image of the prophet. I mean, remember in Paris how they went absolutely nuts and gunned down people because this newspaper put out a image of the prophet? We're getting to that point in America. You cannot criticize. You won't be able to say things. You can't draw a cartoon. You can't draw a meme of the progressive socialist left, of the Democrat candidates or whatever. But they can come out and say all type of disparaging, demeaning, and denigrating things about you, their opposition. They will put you in jail. They will withhold exculpatory evidence when they bring you to trial. See, that's what really we should be thinking about. And I'm going to tell you something. You folks out there, if you hate Donald Trump, you despise Donald Trump, that's your right to do so. But if you think the undermining of our rule of law is okay as an ends, as a means rather to justify an end, which is to destroy your political opposition, I got a problem with you. Because I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, our rule of law. Members of Congress supposedly took the same oath. Joe Biden, the president, said he would uphold the laws of the country. Ain't happening. So what are you going to do, America? You're going to sit around and let us devolve into this lawless, ruthless society? Because we're going to get to the point where it's all about the strong man. And leftists, you're pushing a very dangerous envelope. And you're going to find yourselves isolated. You're going to find yourselves being the really hated ones because this goes far beyond President Trump. I know you're celebrating and hooping and hollering and everything, just waiting for the mugshot or something to come out. You're just waiting to see him go into that courthouse. You're going to scream and shout and everything. You believe that he's guilty. You don't even know what he's guilty of, but you just believe he's guilty. Was Barack Obama guilty of abandoning Americans to die in Benghazi? No. As a matter of fact, Hillary Clinton said, what difference does it make? Because it's us. We can do whatever. Is Joe Biden guilty of abandoning and allowing 13 of our Marines, a soldier and a sailor, to die in Afghanistan because of a decision that he made? He said he made that decision. He said he overruled the generals. It's okay. Who cares about 13 troops dying? As long as we get to do what we want. The family of Brian Terry, who lost their lives because of Obama and Eric Holder coming up with this Operation Fast and Furious. Who cares about Brian Terry? He's just a number. He's just a silly little Border Patrol agent. They kind of get in the way anyhow. Because we don't believe in borders. We don't believe in the United States of America. We just think this is a piece of land in between Canada and country to the south and two oceans on either side. And furthermore, if it can enhance our rule in perpetuity, we're all for it. Who cares about all the Americans that have died because of fentanyl policy? Who cares about the human and sex trafficking? Who cares about the young girls being raped as they're being pushed across the border, and the fact that they will continue to be raped or sexually abused once they come into this country? Who cares? The progressive socialist left doesn't. As long as they get to rule. There's an important decision that's coming up next year, 2024. It's a pivotal point for the longest running constitutional republic that the world has ever known. This is the greatest ideological and philosophical challenge that we have ever faced. Remember the Tom Petty song, I Won't Back Down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I'll stand my ground and I won't back down. That's what people who are steadfast and loyal do. They move to the sound of the guns. They find out where the fight is and they charge full bore into it. Now is not the time for cowards. Now is not the time for summer soldiers and sunshine patriots. Now is not the time to retreat. The rule of law is threatened. Our constitutional republic is threatened. Our representative democracy is threatened. But the left is trying to project all those things that they're doing onto constitutional conservatives. I won't back down. and I pray that you will not either. Steadfast and loyal.
Before they burn it down.